Okay, and my third book that I chose for the Cinderella different cultures books was Bigfoot Cinderella. And it is by Tony Johnston and James Warhola. Now, I kind of had to really think on this one because I know culturally we always think of different countries. But, you know, there are different cultures throughout our country, throughout the United States. So I thought this one might work. I used to spend my summers in Tennessee with my grandparents, and there are definitely different small cultural differences throughout the United States. So I thought this one might work. And it's a really funny book. It's definitely far off from the traditional Cinderella story that we read about. Once upon a time, in the old-growth forest, a band of Bigfoots lived. An enormous snag towered above the other trees close to their camp. Inside its hollow halls of bark lived a dashing Bigfoot prince. He was tall and dark as a Douglas fir with feet like cedar stumps. He was so odoriferous as his tree home was coniferous, and so horrendously hairy that Bigfoot women near and far longed to marry him. That's not quite how I chose my prince. Whenever they saw him lurching along, they blocked his path like deadfalls. They draped wildflowers around themselves. They batted their matted eyelashes to stun him into love. But the prince loved nature best. "No pick flowers," he bellowed at them in a voice as rough as bark. In this place there lived a Bigfoot woman and her 3 daughters. Well, really only 2 were hers. The third was a stepchild. The daughters were puny things with dinky feet, almost furless as Bigfoots go, and as sour as little green berries. They spent their days bathing and picking their teeth with fish bones and sleeking their fur with pine cones. For fun, they threw rocks at spotted owls. The stepdaughter was just the opposite, nearly as woolly as a mammoth, golden as a banana slug, with feet like log canoes. She loved nature and would harm no creature. Her stepsisters despised her and they made her work. Although her name was Ella, they roared at her so much that everyone called her Rella. Rella fix fire, Rella catch fish. They forced her to comb her fur and stick wildflowers in it. If she tugged them out, they put back twice as many. In spite of this primping, Rella was sooty from the fire and stinking with fish, so they teased her like stinging mosquitoes. "You beast," they laughed and held their noses. "You positively reek. You absolute freak." Then they bathed her a lot in the creek. Eek! One morning, Rella went to the river to get supper. She fished all day and tossed her catch onto the bank in a silvery pile. Suddenly, a grizzly bear appeared. He seemed hungry. Rella was bigger than the bear, so she could have shooed him away, but she was too kind. She let him have the fish. When she shambled home empty-handed, her stepsisters rubbed their bellies and bellowed, "Food, food, food!" They forced her to fish all night long. Now, every year, the Bigfoot Prince gave a great fun fest. There were gifts and food and games like Jump the Fire, Bear Cave Hide and Seek, and Hurl the Hemlock. But log rolling was the favorite. This year, whichever woman rolled the prince off a log and into the river would become his wife. Rella's puny sisters hoped to dunk the prince. "When me snag putrid furball prince, me rule whole tree place," yelled the older one. "Me pick all flower," the younger one grinned. Then they bellowed together, "Power, power." So they smoothed their pitiful fur, then spruced up with wildflowers and wearing fine bark clogs to grip the log, they clumped to the festival. "Me go too," Rella hollered after them. She adored to sweat and win at games. Her sisters hooted so hard they fell down. "You stay, catch plenty fish, we catch prince." How Rella longed to go. Sadly, she stared at the river. She saw a fish jump. She made a wish on the fish. "Me wish go fun fest, me wish dunk prince." Heartfelt wish is true wish, growled a gruff voice, and so you go. Rella spun around. She was staring at a bear, the very one she had given fish. Who you? She asked. Me, your berry godfather. Rella was overjoyed, then underjoyed. She mumbled, me got no bark clogs to keep on log. Feet's too big. No bee bug brain, snorted her godfather. He swiped the air with a paw, and instantly an enormous pair of clogs appeared. Rella tried them on. They fit perfectly. Then the grizzly waved a paw over her, and poof, the wildflowers she wore were dust. He patted and matted her fur, and it tangled like the very forest floor. She boomed thanks and gave him a crunching hug. Be back sundown, he warned, or you be like sisters make you. No furry and smelly, but plenty flowery. Rella wasn't worried. She had lots of time. She skipped off, shaking the whole forest as she went. At the Fun Fest, there were Bigfoot women from every clan. The games had begun. One by one, the women leaped onto a log where the prince crouched ready. One by one, he dumped them into the water. Rella's stepsisters hated games, but to catch the prince, they'd do anything. Sorry, that's not super easy to see, is it? Even give logs a twirl. And they hoped a good drenching might even wash off his stench. But they never got the chance. When their turn came, the prince saw their wildflower chains and glowered. He tossed them in the water, snarling, no pick flowers. The day grew late. Everyone had tried to win. Everyone had failed. The Bigfoot prince rumbled, rats, no bride. He was about to slouch home when thunk! Rella bounded onto the log, pounding her chest and whooping, me dunk prince. Grunting with all her might, she spun the log like a big twig. Then she gave it a twist and floop, the prince flopped into the river. There was a stunned silence. The Bigfoots were slow-witted, so it took them a while to figure out what had happened. When at last they began to chant, bride, bride. Oh no, but the sun was setting. Rella saw that and rushed into the dense trees, shrieking, eek, just as her matted fur went sleek and wildflowers began to sprout. The prince lurched from the water, dripping and crushed. His dream woman, shaggy as the forest floor and smelly as a fish and strong, was gone. Scratching his craggy head, he slumped down on a boulder. Drat! 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 He gnashed his mossy teeth. Where'd my stinking beauty go? Then he saw one big bark clog, hers. Now perhaps he could find his princess. The prince shuffled from snag to snag, cave to cave, lugging the lost clog. But though all the Bigfoot women tried it on, it was too large for anyone. The moment he reached Rella's cave, her stepmother and stepsisters pounced on the prince, wrestled the clog from him, and jumped into it eagerly. Their feet were so small, they all fit at once. Then Rella bounded up, yelling, me try, me, me. She did, and her foot fit the clog like a seed in a pod. When she pulled out its mate, the Bigfoot prince knew he'd found his bride. He thumped his chest and roared with joy. The stepsisters roared too. In tantrums, they yanked up some wildflowers and saplings. Their mother kicked the prince black and blue. Soon there was a rowdy wedding in the old-growth forest. Everyone was invited. Even Rella's stepmother and stepsisters could come, if they followed these rules carefully. No pick flower, no pull tree, no kick royal family. And this is not like any other Cinderella type story I've ever read, so I just thought this was hilarious. And the setting for this story, of course, is located in the old-growth forest, about the band of Bigfoots, and they all live in a type of camp. And Cinderella in this story is, of course, Ella, or Rella as they call her. And it describes her, as you heard, as woolly, golden as a banana slug, feet like log canoes, nature-loving Bigfoot. So probably the opposite of what we would think as Cinderella, but of course, This is different from the traditional ones. It said she loved nature, wouldn't hurt a creature. So we know from that that she's caring and sweet. Her stepsisters and stepmother were super horrible to her. So we can tell, first question might be, is she gullible? But I think that it's all she's ever known. And so she just goes along with it, continues her work, and continues taking care of the people that are hurtful to her. The book said, I thought it was funny, she also liked to win games and sweat. So we know from that she loves to work hard and she's competitive. So that's Ella. And the gown, basically there wasn't a gown in this story. It was the fact that she just wanted to be stinky with no flowers. So there wasn't really a gown in this story. It was just herself. And maybe that's kind of relevant to the fact that maybe we don't need special things to make us stand out. It was just herself and her ratty fur and ratty stinky fur. And the shoe in this story was, of course, the clog slippers. And they actually had a purpose in this story, to grasp hold of the log. So there was actually a purpose rather than just beauty, which is in some of the other ones. And the clog fit perfectly with the forest theme. So the stepmother in the story, again, is, they don't give her name. It's just the head Bigfoot, I guess, of the family, her stepmother. And her stepmother was a very cruel person. She loved the stepsisters, which we do see that in the other stories too, the stepmother loving the stepsister. And she was very cruel and mean to Ella. Made her fish all night. Let the sisters take advantage of her. So the stepmother was a very cruel woman. The prince being the Prince Bigfoot. And he loved stinky, smelly things. So he's kind of quirky, I guess. But for the Bigfoot character, they liked the stinky, smelly stuff. And he loved nature. He did not, one of his main things was don't pick the flowers. So he loved nature. He was a nature lover. He knew what he wanted. So he was very determined to find a bride. And the fairy godmother on this one, I loved this. It was the Barry Godfather. So I love the fact that she did something for him, and so he came back and did something for her. It wasn't just the fact that Ella was a good Bigfoot, so she got rewarded for doing nothing. She actually fed the bear, and so the bear came back to help her. So she kind of got rewarded. I thought that that was very cool. And the ball, of course, was the Fun Fest, where Bigfoot women from every clan came to ready to catch the prince. And it wasn't just dancing. There were actually competitions and games. And the illustrations in this book I thought were just cool. And there's definitely the texture throughout on the Bigfoot people. You can see their hair, there's texture. And the texture from the forest. Just the trees and the leaves and everything. Every single picture has texture on it. Every single one. And just the lines of the trees and the colors. The colors are just the lush green colors, which represent the forest. That's where they are. That's the whole setting, is the forest. So, and of course, the illustrations support the literary elements excellently. I mean, the setting, excellently. That's probably not even a word. Excellent. You know, the setting is the forest, and every page represents the forest. The flowers, the trees, the water. So they go hand in hand. So there's a great picture with the texture. So this was a really cute book. So I definitely recommend it.